What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Hey, welcome everybody. It is time for our Wednesday night edition of The Awakening World. I'm Love Coach Scott Thomas. I love hosting this show and I love greeting all of you. Welcome to all of our friends in the Zoom room. And for those of you that are regulars, how do you like our new edited version of our opening video? I'm seeing that Trish is sneezing, so that's probably a good sign. Anyway, welcome. And let me know what you think. How did you like the new one? All right. And also always let us know where you are geographically. I also want to welcome all of you that are watching on Facebook, out over 100 different Facebook groups and pages. Thank you, John and Summer Raymer and the Sign Network for that. You might be watching on Alan Steinfeld's YouTube channel or our YouTube channel, or you might be watching on our new broadcast partner, the Conscious Awakening Network. Now, those are all wonderful ways to watch us. However, what I really want to invite you to do is to come on into our Zoom room. Come join the Global Peace Tribe. It's really easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com. You can learn more about who we are and what we do, and then click where it says register for the new season. And that'll take you to our registration page. We do 3 or 4 shows every week, live, original, with amazing people like you're going to meet tonight. When you register, you're going to get the links to all of our shows for Wednesday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning, and also the special shows that we sometimes do. And these are some of the amazing hosts and regular people that you'll see on the show. And here's tonight's show, The Power of Safe Mediation. It's kind of a double entendre. We actually have the 2 people that are primary mediators with Safe Mediation, which is a wonderful global mediation company. And then we also have Trish and Paul and myself, who are also people that do mediation. On Saturday night, we are going to do kind of part 2 of this incredible show that we started last Sunday with Chief Phil Lane, grandmother Mona Polaka, and a former Green Beret Special Forces soldier who is the founder of the Warrior Angel organization. And they've all come together and created this amazing coalition of Indigenous people and former military people dedicated to unifying our world and ending war. And then on our Sacred Sunday show, it's all about ascension with the 2 people who literally wrote the book on ascension. Deborah Giusti, my former co-host for Saturday Night Live, and Meg Benedicte, one of our favorite luminary teachers. You're going to be with us on Sunday. So register now, come join us. We've got a lot of wonderful things happening. We're going to be doing retreats in Los Angeles and Sedona and Asheville. Come join the Global Peace Tribe. All right. It's all about mediation. And we've got, of course, my wonderful Wednesday night co-host and cohort, Trish. And Trish, I do want to start by asking you, maybe you can share a little bit about the power of mediation as you've observed it as a mediator, as a facilitator.
The power of understanding is pretty wild, right? And I'm sure that throughout the rest of this conversation tonight, we'll find ways to go about that, but also see the power in that, the power not only of understanding, but I like to call it negotiating reality, and finding ways to, if you can't come to some sort of reality, where you like figure out a way to meet there, that there's a way to actually move through and either move away or move towards conflict, because we as love coaches know that conflict is an amazing doorway into intimacy.
Absolutely. Well said. Hey, we just watched that opening video, and I want to just acknowledge for a moment Jay Mayer, who's in the house. And Jay did the editing of everything you just saw. How'd you like that? Give Jay some love. Pop in the chat box. I see thumbs up, wild Abbott. People are, okay, we're seeing good stuff. So, Jay was on me for a while. He said, Scott, come on, it's too dark. He didn't like the opening dark faces. So we brightened it up with some of our favorite co-hosts and luminaries. So thank you, Jay, for doing that. And on Saturday night, we're going to have a new Wisdom Jewels. Remember the Wisdom Jewels? They're back. Wow, Jay's got 4 hands now. How incredible. There is the lovely and talented, emphasis on the word talented, Janice Kaplan. Good to have you guys back in the house. Hey, speaking about also in the house, we've got Camila Peace Love, who you've seen on the show before. She's back, and she is one of our safe mediators. Welcome back, Camila.
Hello, Scott. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
And I want to acknowledge her. She's in Austin, and she lost all of her electricity today. I got this frantic message from her an hour or two ago saying, I have no electricity. I said, can you find someone who does? And you did.
I did. It's been a weird day. We have hoarfrost everywhere. It's really beautiful. It's like a winter magical wonderland. But I did make it to a place with electricity. So here we are. Happy to be on the show.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad you're with us, and you've got a lot of wonderful things to share on this topic. So thank you.
You bet.
The great Paul Sterling is with us, my dear friend, former roommate, soon to be roadmate, and a brilliant coach. And Paul, thank you for joining us, also from a very cold area, Colorado.
Yeah, I am. It was 0 degrees a few days ago. And actually, I was in Austin when there was a freeze many years ago. And Austonians are not prepared for ice on the roads and freezing pipes. And it was crazy. So my heart is with you. And thanks, Scott. I think mediation is such an important topic right now. And I'd love to share what wisdom I have about this, and know that it's an ongoing struggle. You wouldn't need mediators if it was easy.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that for sure. So thanks for being with us, Paul. So here you go. This is who you're going to see tonight, plus a pre-recorded video with Anna Issa from Safe Mediation. But we always love to get the show rocking and rolling with Omashar, and he is here with his newest background. You never know now what background you're going to get from Omashar.
That's right. Yeah. It's yes. Namaste and aloha, everybody. Really excited for tonight's topic, because sometimes the mediation that I need is with myself, between my higher and my earth self, just because they're they're in an awakening, not battle, but an awakening. I want the limelight. No, I want the limelight anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to sing a song called Precious One, and here it is. go slow here. Precious one, I love you more than I can say. You are the one that's here in my life all the time, shining your light through my day. Only you can take all of my troubles and cares. With your breath, you blow them away like the wind, clearing the storms of the day. And da-da-da, ba-da-dum, ba-dum, dum, ba-da-dum, and this is the dawn of that bright and glorious day, when your love shines right through the heart of our world, melting what stands in the way. Precious one, I love you more than I can say. You are the one that's here in my life all the time, shining your light through my day.
Alright, I'm gonna get this one. Yep.
Come on, mute yourself. Only you can take all of my troubles and cares. With your breath, you blow them away like the wind, clearing the storms of the day. And da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da, and precious one.
I love that. And talking about precious one, I'm going to pop Eleanor Joy on for a minute. There she is, because she is a very precious one. And God bless you, she's still dancing despite having some recent challenges that have put her in the hospital, but she's back always in time for the show.
Yeah, Eleanor.
Star, I just want us to send everybody maximum grace for Eleanor Joy. Maximum grace.
Maximum grace, sweetheart.
Maximum grace.
You look younger every single show.
And we're going to meet her when we get up to British Columbia. So I'm looking forward to that, Eleanor. And a reminder, everybody, to support Omashar by going to omashar.bandcamp.com, where you can get his albums. And Omashar, I love what you said about mediation within self. I definitely want to hear what some of our people have to say about that, because it's true.
It's true, because especially when it's been a long time since I've been in an intimate relationship, so I don't have that push and pull of every day having to appear. But when that's taken away, you have only yourself to deal with, and you realize that there is, well, I've realized that you're never alone with schizophrenia. There's a cancel clear, but I've noticed there's a battle going on, because I'm doing everything I can every day to enlighten myself, and that which does not want to be enlightened is rattling its cage. So, yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. Who can relate to that? Pop that in the chat box if you can relate to that.
However, it's a slam dunk, so my faith is strong.
I'm sure I love you. We'll hear more Om Shar later on in the show. I'm going to bring on Camila because really this idea came up when I was talking to her partner, Anna Isa, and you're going to hear from Anna Isa in a pre-recorded video. She's in Amsterdam. And Anna Isa and Camila are Safe Mediation. And we did a little bit of work together and realized, God, this is such an important topic to understand. So Camila, welcome. And I've known you for several years now, and I have such respect for you because I know you're really dedicated to bringing love and peace into a system that has thousands of years about punishment and right and wrong and good and bad. And you're transcending that system, which is so archaic. And so I really honor your commitment to mediation and really taking us into a new paradigm of restorative justice. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, and I'd love you to share with the audience what safe mediation means to you and how
Thank
that's
you.
really where we're going.
It was such a beautiful intro. I feel like I don't need to say anything else. You just hit all the main points.
Well, I'm sure you'll elucidate.
Yeah, I was honored to join Anaisa's team on Safe Mediation just last year, and we doubled her mediation numbers from 1 to 2 as far as the mediators. So Anaisa had already been working in the global mediation field. I had been working more in a US domestic mediation field, and we found out that both of us are apt to work together in a niche that is what we're calling Tantra positive mediation. So in the professional world of folks teaching Tantra seminars and Tantra courses and offering Tantra sessions in private as well as workshops with larger groups, there have been some need for mediation in those spaces. So Anaisa brought me onto her team, and now a lot of my workload is in the Tantra space. And it feels really good to serve in that way because I also work in the Tantra field separate from my mediation work. So same with Anaisa. She and I have both been facilitating Tantra workshops as well as building our skills as a mediator for many years. So this is the first time for me that those two worlds have intersect, and it's been a really special niche.
That's interesting because all of us, and really until you brought it up right now, I hadn't made the connection, but all four of us that are in this, and Anna Isa as well, we all have a significant background in Tantra. I made a movie and I've done multiple television shows on it. I have been studying and teaching Tantra for 30 years. Paul created a video that last time I heard is like 5 million views on Tantra, Paul?
No, it's about 6.7 million views right now.
Right. And
Awesome.
Trish also has a long history in Tantra and sacred sexuality. Now, for people who may not know what Tantra is, Trish, would you like to? No, you don't want to educate people about that. I love
Me to teach, to talk about that piece. Remember, I don't teach Tantra anymore for very specific reasons.
okay, all right.
I'm happy to. I just taught a course on Tantra last week, so it's fresh on my tongue.
Okay, good. I meant to put the spotlight on you and I accidentally removed you. There you go. You're up, Camila.
Okay, so Tantra is a form of practices and beliefs and ways of connecting ourself more deeply with our divine self and connecting with each other in their divine selves. So there's many different practices in the world of Tantra, only a few of which are related to sexuality. In the modern day, I would say there's such an emphasis on sexuality within Tantra, but that's really only a sliver of all the different lifestyle and spiritual walking pieces in the teachings of Tantra. So Tantra is really about, we recognize that there are these polarities in life, and there is the human world of duality, and we are searching to grow in all areas of these spectrums so that we're able to embody anywhere along the polarity, for example, a masculine and feminine, that we're able to show up anywhere on that spectrum and integrate the whole pull, the whole from masculine to feminine, integrate all of that into our being, and then we're able to connect with each other as fully integrated beings. So Tantra is really a walking towards greater knowing ourselves and each other as divine. That's how I like to boil it down.
Beautiful. You know, it's interesting, George, and I definitely always like to read some of the things, the comments that come in and questions. And George wrote, very interesting. I never would have thought a mediation would be needed at a Tantra event. Well, bro, let me tell you. I mean, think about it. In Tantra, we are exploring our inner masculine and feminine. Tantra actually means to weave. So we're weaving our spiritual self with our sexual self. We're weaving our masculine self with our feminine self. We're weaving our energy with the energy of another if we're in a couple partnership experience. And so that brings up a lot of stuff, And so I think it's not a coincidence, actually, that you've got this background in Tantra and this background in mediation and how they're coming together.
Yeah.
And they're really both very visionary. You know,
Yeah.
your form of mediation, this is where we need to take the judicial system. And
Yes.
Tantra is where we need to take our spirituality.
Yes.
So we need to weave our spirituality in with our body, in with our sexuality, with our life force. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's, I'm sure many people listening relate because we're in the world of entrepreneurialism, that many people have had the experience of running businesses or running multiple businesses, or having multiple skills that we're developing at the same time. So for me, it was these two separate worlds that I had developing for many years, that of conflict resolution and mediation, and that of sacred sexuality. And then all of a sudden there was this merging, because the way I see it is the Me Too movement hit the Tantra field last year, maybe a year or two after the Me Too movement hit America. Then it really had a deeper opening in the Tantra field last year. So there has been a need for mediation, and it is no surprise. And it's honestly, those of us that work in the field of conflict resolution, we realize that this really is across all human behavior. So, take a area of human life. I'm sure the professional athlete realm needs mediation too. I just am not in that niche, and I've never done mediation for professional athletes, but I bet you there's all kinds of disputes there, right? So it's like, pick any pocket of human business, hobbies, behavior, and truly there is a need for support getting through challenging communication and challenging negotiations.
I'm going to stay with Camila for just a little bit longer, then we'll hear from Paul and Trish. But since you brought up the Me Too movement and what's happened, I've been brought in to work with several Tantra teachers that were authority figures who have been accused of inappropriate sexual conduct. And there's no doubt that that's happened. One of the things that's been fascinating for me is when I did come in, I actually had some prejudice against some of the offenders because I was aware of some of the harm that they had created. But then as I came into kind of the specifics, what I began to discover was a mob mentality that also existed in our supposedly spiritual community, where people who had never even met the offendees, the proposed perpetrators, that never even met them, were coming out publicly against them. And it was like, oh my God, there's this Me Too mob mentality within men and women, by the way, that was really shocking to me and surprising to me.
Yeah, it's a nuanced scene for sure. It's not easy to say, oh, this person's in the right and this person's in the wrong, and it's really obvious, and therefore person doing the harm needs to make amends and do reparation work. There's often a lot of nuances in how a situation evolved and came to be the way that it came to be. And so one of the reasons I was such a good fit with Anaisa's mediation style with Safe Mediation is because both of us, as you alluded to, have a special commitment to do mediation in a transformative style. and that weaves in restorative justice work and racial equity work and gender equity work and various awarenesses of different levels of privileges and different traumas and knowing how to work with trauma. So the sort of swing that is not so great that I think you're pointing to is when we have someone who has done some behavior that has caused some harm and they're willing to do the repair work, but the community has already kind of sliced off their head and done a cancel culture move. And we're dealing with that as mediators. We're seeing that some offenders have been typecasted as such and really canceled out of teaching careers and social circles, and various levels of their livelihood and lifestyle have been impacted pretty strongly. And so what we do in our style of mediation is we help all sides really do internal self-reflection, so they're able to see some deeper layers that maybe weren't obvious before when the conflict happened. So we are really doing a type of introspective, therapeutic, transformative mediation style that is, it's not therapy, but it is a way of helping people analyze, how did I help contribute to the situation? And even if I don't agree with this other person's perspective, can I listen and really take it in and help validate that it's true for them? So we work a lot with different compassionate communication and empathetic listening skills, and really ideally help folks both come to understand the other person's perspective and both come to understand new ways that they themselves contributed to the situation.
Boom. Like that's where we're going.
Yeah.
Yes, Trish.
Accountability of impact. Like that's really where things can actually shift, is when someone is willing to look at how they, regardless of whether it's good or bad, it's not a good bad conversation. It's that if I say something and I know that it might be your trigger, Camilla, like it might be, and I say something and you share that there's harm caused, now I got choice there, right? I can just be like, oh no, I would never do that. Like that wasn't my intention. No, I don't care about intention, to be really honest. I don't care at all. But I do care about the impact. And you could be like, this is how it impacted me. And I could really show up in a couple different ways, right? I could be like, you're sharing this impact with me. And I could chuck it out to the side with deflection or, oh, not me's, or, I didn't intend, or whatever, those things. Or I could really take ownership of that and restore integrity. Be like, wow, I see that I hurt you. Like I harmed you in whatever action that flamboyant Trish does when she's stomping all around like an elephant and not even noticing, like, and I see how it impacted you. I see the harm. This is how it looks. This is what I've done. Impacted you. This is all of these pieces, and this is what I'm going to choose to do in the future. Impact, acknowledgement, and restorations of integrity. Wow.
Paul Sterling, I saw you raise your hand. I was just going to go to you next anyway. So you're up, partner.
Awesome. And I wanted to follow up on what Trish was saying, what everybody's been saying, to give people three phases, like, so mediation, and it aligns well with an apology. I was listening to Brene Brown the other day, and there was three phases. Why are you apologizing? Because there's one apology method. It's, I want you to shut up and I'm going to apologize so that you stop complaining. This is not restoration. This is not what we're talking about, but a lot of apologies come that way. Like, could you please be quiet? I'm sorry. So number one is, what's the intention? Number two is to acknowledge, yes, I did that. I borrowed your car and I ran it out of gas. That's phase two, and a lot of people stop there. Phase three is to be accountable. I ran it out of gas and I'm going to go get gas. The lack of accountability is, I ran it out of gas and it's up the road. I'll see you later, Scott. And so it's like, do we do all of these? Do we what's our intention? And a lot of times intention, some people teach about compromise is really good. And I said, no, compromise sucks. Compromise is lose-lose. You can have the same result with resolution, though. Resolution is win-win. So what I'm looking at here is how do you create peace, harmony, and partnership? And when I'm working with, and I've worked anywhere from in prisons with inmates, mostly what I work with is couples, but I work in the family structure. Scott's a lot more familiar with that, but with parents and kids, siblings. And it's like, how do you take the journey from adversaries to allies? And it's a challenging thing. And what I want to just say a little bit about is one of the most basic tools that we have is communication. And so I want to analyze communication just for a second. In communication, there's a listener and a speaker. And the challenge with the way a lot of people communicate, it's perceived by an attack, and the listener has this thing I call a listening switch. And anytime I think somebody's making me bad, stupid, wrong, using guilt, shame, blame, my listening switch starts to go off. It's not on off, it's a dimmer switch. I hear less and less words. And at some point, I totally turn off. Why is this important? Because if you're in the mediation process, you have to make sure that the listening switch is on, because if the listening switch isn't on, communication's not happening. There's not a flow of communication. There's not a listener and a speaker. So to me, that's part of what makes sense here. So let's go for resolution. So it's win-win, not lose-lose, which compromise tends to be. And let's watch and go slowly. And this is the important thing, is to go slowly, a little chunk at a time, and check in and see what they heard. Did they hear I was making them wrong? Or did they hear that I'm in it, I'm acknowledging my part in this, and I'm willing to be accountable for the impact? So that's just a quick overview, Scott.
I love that, because so much of, again, why mediation to me is so important is we are leaving the right wrong model. We're leaving the good bad model. One of the things that actually I learned from Paul Sterling that I use all the time with my coaching is he said, no BSW, bad, stupid, wrong. And how often when we're working with people, their intention is to point out that their partner is either bad or stupid or wrong, which creates reptile brain reaction. And that's not going to bring us into the level of harmony and love that we all really want to live in. Trish.
What was that class that we taught last year with the funny name? It was like how to
manage your crazy brain in love.
No, it was about apologies. I was like, I stop calling it this one apology thing. And I was like, it's like how to stop apologizing, how to take ownership or something. He was really like, and I love what you said.
Oh, I remember. Apologies suck was the first words. Apologies suck. Here's what you're really looking for. That's what it was.
And who named that? And I love that you brought up how the apology piece, because who's the apology for? I'm always asking, who is the apology for? The apology is for me. I'm going to say, oh, I'm sorry because I feel uncomfortable with my own feelings about whatever it is, or I want it to stop, or I want, I want it to hurry up, instead of actually sitting in the discomfort of what actually happened and the other person's feelings and my feelings about it.
Absolutely. Isn't I'm sorry usually what I'm sorry really means is I really don't want to deal with this anymore. This is too uncomfortable. Can we get over it? I'm sorry I ran over your dog, but let's move on. What's for dinner? It's
well, Scott, let me ask you this question. This is a setup question here. The dogs like bones.
Yes.
Now, let me just ask you, if your dog, your amazing dog, had a choice between bone and steak, what would the dog take?
Steak.
See, dogs settle for bones. They want steak. We settle for apologies. And what we want is
the moment you talked to her, she came up, literally, right now. She just came up to me. So
that's a little steak eater.
Because she wants her steak. She's wondering, where's the steak?
Bones?
steak.
So it's important. And it's like, I want to just say one other thing, and people should get their pens out for this. This is a participatory part. There are 4 levels of communication, and we work our way up. The bottom is reactive. And in reactive, I'm either going to dominate or be dominated. The next level up is I am responsive. So if Trish brings something to me or Scott brings something to me, I can respond. I'm not initiating. The next level up is resourceful. So I can bring something to the table. I can bring something to the mediation. And then the highest level is revealing. And that's where I'm vulnerable. And if I see you as my enemy, I'm not going to reveal anything to you because that's what you can and will use against me. I'm right down there in reactive, and I'm going to not be dominated. I'm going to dominate you. So our job as mediators is to move out of reaction up to either responsive, maybe resourceful. And if we create a safe environment, I love safe mediation. In safe mediation, we can actually reveal, I'm scared. I'm hurt. I'm afraid to come to mediation. I'm afraid I can't, protect myself. So does that make sense, Scott?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. What I want to do is I'm going to play part of a pre-recorded video with Ana Isa. And she is a delight. And while I get ready to play that, I'm going to put the spotlight on you for a moment, Camila. I'd love for you to just kind of introduce our audience to Ana Isa, since she's your partner.
Absolutely. Anissa and I are mediation partners. She is a Brazilian woman who has been living in Amsterdam for several years. So she runs Safe Mediation out of Amsterdam. And she has a background in different levels of psychoanalysis work. And so she brings a mental health background into her work as a mediator. And she's been trained in many different restorative justice methods, as well as many different levels of trauma-informed, trauma awareness, trauma sensitivity. And one of the most valuable parts of working with her is how well she's able to analyze people's personalities, mental health, emotional health, and really help them navigate communication in a way that will work best for their nervous system.
Beautiful. Beautiful introduction. And here is Ana Isa, and we're going to watch this video for a few minutes and then come back to Paul and Trish and Camila. Welcome, Ana Isa. I'm really grateful to have you with us today. And I've been so impressed with your mediation skills and abilities and your beautiful heart. And so I'd love to ask you, tell us how mediation, as you provide it, has transformed some of the lives of your friends and your clients.
Thank you, Scott, for inviting me today. And I love talking about mediation. So the processes that I've been facilitating have contributed a lot for people to accept the situation they were in, and to also understand what was possible for them to find creative ways to get their own needs met. I think a lot of conflicts start by having needs and wanting the counterparts to meet their needs and not finding that way. So mediation has helped them to find alternatives for that. And
tell us kind of when you're doing a mediation, how do you prepare for it? Like, what do you do to really prepare to stay in your heart, but also be paying attention to the dynamics?
Oh yeah, that's when I say I do mediations, many people ask if I'm a lawyer, because I think the conventional relationship with mediation is the court type of mediation, or a person who is very skilled in negotiations, which I'm trained in negotiations as well. But the style of mediation that I offer is very much based also on emotions and a lot of care for the nervous system. And I can tell you that it doesn't matter how much training I have, it only works if I am fully present for the people in the room. So the preparation is so important. It involves a lot of meditation. I have to be physically, emotionally, mentally charged, like recharged. I can't be tired. I can't be drained. So I do a lot of preparation in terms of finding a time to really empty myself and let go of any outcome for that session when these two people are coming in. And I also pray. I don't know, like pray can be so many things to so many people, but I really bring a spiritual element for that. I put myself as a vessel, as someone who is going to be there present, facilitating that conversation, but not knowing, I don't know what's going to happen. So I really put myself there as a vessel and I'm calling in for any help I can get from my intuition. So, and I'm sure every human being has their own way to work their spirituality, the mystical, the mystery of life, and I bring that in.
I love that. That's, I think, one of the things that I so appreciate about you. So thank you for sharing that. When you're mediating with, let's say, a couple or two people that are in challenge, how do you manage the part of you that in certain circumstances where you see one person is really in victim mode and holding on to victim, to not be able to see the other person's perspective, the other person's point of view? Because that's what I find is one of the hardest things. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, so one way of doing that, I always have a preparation call with each part before I put them together in a room. And in that preparation call, I assess how much the person is capable of seeing the other side. And there are cases where I recommend, if the person is very much attached as a victim role, blaming the other for everything, not taking any responsibility for contributing to the outcome. If that's really the case, I then recommend that person to search for a counselor or a therapist, or take support, like build a support system around them, so they can dive deeper into what is holding them into that identification with the victim, because it's a process. You can't take the person out of that role. It doesn't work like we snap this person out of it. Sometimes work with some people, but each case is so unique, right? So that's one thing in the preparation call. But most cases, people are willing to take at least 1% share of contribution to the outcome. So I say, okay, the other person really caused you harm. The other person did a lot for that. But let's imagine if you could name 1% of what you did that led you to be in the situation you are in now. What would be that 1%? And that helps a lot, because then the person starts taking responsibility for putting themselves in that situation, and that brings their power back, because then they feel empowered and they start looking, hey, so I can see how I can prevent it to happen to myself again, because now I know how I contributed to that. So we do work that in the preparation call. Another thing that I do in the preparation call, I developed a process, a framework with 12 questions that I go through with the victim. And we go through the story of what happened in 12 steps that will help the victim to build their narrative. And I have a commitment on the other side the person who caused harm, the abuser, the so-called abuser, assuming that person is willing to come into mediation and restore and repair the harm caused because they are willing to change. And in many cases, this is the case. And they are committed to listen to the victim and repeat back everything that the victim is presenting. Because many times the victim just wants to be acknowledged, and the victim wants someone else to acknowledge that the abuse happened.
And just pause it there and bring up our other presenters. I love the way she expresses herself. She's just, she's really bright, but she's so in her heart.
Mhm.
One of the things that she touched on that maybe Trish, I'd love to hear what you have to say, is she touched on paying attention to the nervous system of the clients. And that's something I know that all of us are aware of, but I just love to, because it's such an important point. So Trish, would you like to talk a little bit about that for a minute?
Yeah, well, she also brought it up right around trauma informed as well. And I think that something that every practitioner needs, or any person, I mean, honestly, I think that anybody who dates anybody or wants to love someone might want to be trauma informed. Just my own perspective here, but in the sense of really looking at the whole person and kind of looking at maybe the experiences that this person could have had, that maybe their nervous system was too overwhelmed to actually process the information. I'm going to say that trauma is that for everyone, that it's whatever my nervous system can handle. And if it can't handle over that amount of information, that would be a trauma to my system. Everybody's different. There's 8 billion people on this planet as of just like last month. And so it's kind of like trauma informed means whatever your nervous system can handle is there. So if I've had experiences in my past that sort of set me up to be tripped by, we'll say, maybe I'm sensitive to how a particular male-bodied or penis-having person will talk to me, I might be like really triggered by that because of my past experiences. So when we're talking about trauma informed, it's really educating oneself to know that everyone handles and processes these stimuli coming in at a very different way. There's 7.8 billion or 8 billion realities on this planet. How we process information, how we understand it, how we take it in, how we hold on to it, or where we get, we'll say like, or where we get stuck in it, and how we can communicate about it. That's all in the nervous system. So when you're paying attention to the nervous system, you're paying attention to someone's body language, how they're holding themselves. Where's their jaw? Can you tell if their tongue is at the roof of their mouth? Are you watching them glaze out? Like you're disassociating and you're like, I just want you to get this. And they're like, oh no, it's collaborative, just because I might be the person who is harmed or the victim in this situation doesn't necessarily mean that that other person who did the harm is going to be able to process that information as well. And that a collaboration here is like they could be disassociating just as fast and as hard as I am in any given moment. So again, it's a very skilled mediator can watch all sides. And it's not about taking sides, but about balancing it out, right? Finding the where things can be like, if I'm the victim per se, where I can take accountability for how I participated in it as well. And where that person walked into my trap even, or how maybe I set them up like subconsciously, but also taking accountability and responsibility for impact on both sides. Wow, it just it shifts the dynamic so quickly. Did that answer your question?
It's a great start. It's a great start. And I want to give Camila and Paul a chance to add to that or to respond to Dorina, who wrote a great question, which I'll read in a moment. But I just want to riff on what you said for a moment, Trish. Two quick things. One is I always ask people, what are your veils of past pain? What are those prior experiences you've had that when you walk into a situation and you hear a certain word or you see a certain person or you're in a certain situation, a veil comes down of fear or a veil comes down and you can no longer see that person or that situation clearly. And we all have veils of past pain. And the other thing that for me is I listen to voice because the voice informs me of how centered someone is. Notice if I'm talking slowly, I'm centered. There's a resonance in my voice that's comfortable to listen to. But if I start talking faster and faster, I'm not even changing the volume, but notice how uncomfortable it is to hear me because my voice is, going off center. And so the resonance of the voice always helps me to clue into how connected to their center are they and how are they speeding up and going into defensive, have they been abducted by their reptile brain, basically? So I'd love to hear from Paul and Camila about kind of this part of it, paying attention. Oh, there it is.
There's our reptile brain.
Our reptile brain.
Yeah, I'd love to add a piece to what Trish was saying. This aspect of what trauma is activated when a person is going through a conflict and there's a mediator on the scene. So as mediators, we're trained to see where people are in trauma responses, different examples Trish gave. And what I am really aware of is at this point, most adult interactions are reactivating a trauma from much earlier in their life than what that thing is actually about. So mediator is on scene to deal with something that happened within the last few months, most likely. And in that conflict, 9 times out of 10, in my opinion, there is something going on in one or both of the people that is related to a trauma in the past, far before the thing that happened that we're actually mediating about. It's beautiful to know that and to be able to see that. How to deal with it brings on a whole nother set of questions, because if people are activated in trauma that they didn't even cause and they actually had nothing to do with, it was from a much previous part of this person's life, then it's like, well, how can we navigate this current conflict in a way that we're actually seeing a much bigger picture than what just happened within the last few weeks or month? And so this piece we keep talking about with accountability and integrity, it also relates to a person taking responsibility for parts of themselves that they disowned in their past that is now showing up in a trigger with this person. And I like to say our triggers are our treasures, because I see that every single time I have a trigger, it's actually the most important place for me to focus my growth work on. And when I can unpack that trigger, I then become really able to understand what got me heated, where it relates to my past, and actually be grateful for that situation in my present, being an activator of that thing from my past, so I can integrate all of it and heal all of it. So if we do that in ourselves, I know Paul and I know Trish, and this is how we live. This is how we do our own personal relationships and our own personal growth work. So then we're able to see that when we're dealing with people that hired us to help them through a conflict, we're able to see all the layers of, oh, there's stuff going on that didn't just happen in this thing we're mediating about. And if we can help both people take responsibility for those parts, that's actually a way that we help depersonalize it from the situation that happened, and both sides are able to take more responsibility about how they got there. And I'm not oversimplifying it to say that's only what's happening. There are real things that happen in real time that people are hurt about and are calling mediators to help with. So I'm not minimizing that. I'm pointing to all the past history that informs the present moment.
That was really powerful. Thank you. Thank you. That's beautiful. Mr. Sterling, I saw you were reaching for your toys, so we didn't get a chance to see them fully. If you want to go back there, or
I would definitely, but I want to actually elaborate a little bit on what Trish said about kind of juggling the things we're juggling. So we think that what we say is what the other person hears. And we think communication's actually simple, but it's not. There's 4 places. So there's what I want to say, what I actually said. So if I use Trish, what Trish thought she heard, and then what she thought it meant. So there's these 4 places we're trying to juggle all at once. And if I really want to enter somebody's world, there's a difference between a good communicator and a great communicator. Good communicator, I'm worried about what I said. I said it right. They heard it wrong. But a great communicator doesn't care I don't care what I said. I care what you heard. Oh, I thought I said, I love you. And you thought I said, go to hell. And I sometimes, like Marshall Rosenberg, who taught us, most of us here, about nonviolent communication, it's like, how do you enter somebody else's world? And I was working in prison, and I was working with these 2 cellies. So I was mediating between 2 cellmates, and it took 10 times the cellmate A saying, please, I have very little privacy here. If you touch my stuff, it really triggers me. Please don't touch my stuff. Can you tell me what you heard me say? Because she was I was right there coaching. She's trying to enter or have the other person enter her world. And the other person said, yeah, what you said is you don't want me as your cellie. Now, what she said, pretty clear. I heard it. And so did everybody else. And she had to say it 10 times for the other person to be able to hear it. And if we think about it, trauma is a way of protecting us. Our trauma response is a way of protecting us. And so one of my little props right here, I went over my handlebars on my mountain bike and broke the 4th metacarpal. So it's this bone in the back of my hand. Now, for about 2 months, this cast was really important to protect me. But after 2 months, if I kept the cast on 2 years later, my muscles would start to atrophy. And this is what happens with us as human beings. I was abused as a child. I was this, and I still keep the cast on because it's trying to protect me, but it's atrophying my growth. If I don't heal through the trauma, then I basically use the trauma to put a wall up, and people can't touch me in these areas, or my reaction is disproportionate to the current situation. The last thing I'll say about this is, if I want somebody to enter my world, part of my world is the stories I tell. So Scott, when you did that and you didn't include me or whatever it was, I told myself the story that you don't care about me, or that other people are more important. And this is where I have to be vulnerable, because I am revealing my story rather than believing it. I'm here to bust it. So I have to reveal the story, and then it's a chance for Scott to go, oh my God, no wonder you're so upset. That wasn't what it was at all.
Really good point, Paul. And, as mediators, again, so often we're translators, we're paying attention and either ask, person A to reflect back what they just heard, which is normally what we do. But sometimes if they're too triggered, we've got to do it, or sometimes we need to translate. If person A is saying something in a very judgmental way, then I'll stop and translate and say, so imagine what you're really wanting to express is, and I'll try and translate it in nonviolent communication language. I'll be going from jackal to giraffe, or I like to say going from reptile brain reactivity to frontal lobe observation or responsiveness. We've got a question that came in, and I want to read it to you. I don't know, it looks like Paul disappeared, so hopefully he'll come back. Dorina, thank you, Dorina, for your questions. Dorina gives a really good question. She says, thank you, everyone, for great sharing. Question: what are the reasons behind the very high divorce rates, especially in the United States, besides the common cultural traditions and religious norms that are quite prevalent in the other countries, with even higher ones like Russia and China and former Soviet republics, but much lower in most South American ones? Maybe a better communication and more mediation would help lower all those rates worldwide. Love to hear what you all have to say to that.
We're all relationship coaches and mediators, so this is an interesting one for us.
Totally.
I'd start with a theological viewpoint on this, to be really honest. So y'all go first, and I'll wrap it up with a.
Okay.
I'll say a
Commander
positive
Kira.
one that's quick, and then
Okay.
you can talk longer, Paul. This is one of the possible reasons that I like to put forth because it actually is inspiring to me rather than depressing. I believe one of the contributing factors of the major increase of divorce rates in the last couple decades is because I'll say people, but primarily women, are realizing that they have more power, more choice, and they can be happier than they have been. So they're seeing that they can survive a divorce and choose happier setup in their life afterwards. So I think in the past there was not much permission and there was not much possibility of social and financial survival for women to divorce. And so a divorce meant you're with this person till they die or you die. And a marriage meant, I just misspoke, sorry, a marriage meant I'm with this person till you die or they die. And now I think people, and specifically women, have a lot more ability to see that they can have a happy life for themselves post-divorce. And so they're choosing happiness over many of the other safety pieces that were part of the constructs of marriage for the last few hundred years until now.
I'd love yes. Like that's exactly what I was gonna to bring in, because the institution of marriage is also woven into the institution of gender role dynamics. And so that creates places where we're dependent on another person for certain things. This is historically like, if you want to talk about this, we should just put a show on about this specific thing, because I would love to dive into this. If you want to just talk to me about it, I would love to just sit with it. But the piece around hundreds of years, we're cultivating dependency on other people, especially if you keep someone in a unstable position, then they have to rely on you. So marriage, especially in this country, is an institution of property ownership. And if you want to look back, I'll give you the stuff, but it's like, so if you have relationships that are rooted in dependency on the breadwinner, or someone who is controlling the finances or controlling the security and safety, food, shelter, all of those things, then people, especially women, are often like beholden to that. And so as like, just as Camilla was saying, is like, as women are now able to get jobs, and we have bank accounts only since what, like the 60s or something like that, and we have more freedom to do with our bodies in some states, in fact, like now there are more opportunities that we don't have to rely on someone, especially if that someone comes home and who's kind of aggressive or angry or treats us like whatever, that more and more people are choosing their own stability than dependence on another, or codependency. Now on an emotional level, there's that piece of the divorce rate. Like I don't know if you're all noticing, but we're starting to really see the friction between, we'll call it the dynamics of the masculine and feminine polarity dynamic in the country, of like how we're starting to tease out communication. And again, so I'm going to speak a little on intersectionality right now for just a hot second, is that so anybody who's not maybe at the more privileged top had to learn to attune and conform to the comfort of the people above us. So as a white woman, I'm conforming and people pleasing towards someone who's more powerful, and it just trickles down, right? So as we start to all find our empowerment and start to level out in equity and in inequality, we're starting to find that we're not putting up with as much BS in any dynamic, because we're like, I don't want to feel uncomfortable for weeks and months and years on end, and that my standing up for myself will be better for my children and will be better for everyone. So there's a lot of dynamics. These are just two of the things of many reasons for the divorce statistics.
Note to self, we will do a show on this. Why Trish no longer wants to be her man's chattel.
That's the word. He nailed it.
Yeah, that really is what it was. I mean,
That's some
long
ancient
ago.
legal terminology right there. You nailed it.
Absolutely, not that long ago. Sylvia points out that women couldn't even have credit cards until 1974, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. Pretty extraordinary.
I'm still like at this age at 36, I'm still not allowed to just consensually choose to have a hysterectomy because I don't want to have children. There's so many weird control pieces that are still in play that keeps us dependent upon. But now that I can actually get an education, I mean, women have fought for education to even become educated. Women have fought to do all of these things that just come naturally to many, many people. So we are now finding places where we can get jobs and we're not reliant. And you know what? Do you know how many older women, like my grandmother, for instance, and I have a 74-year-old friend. I've got like so many like older women friends who are choosing to stay single because they use the one of very many terms, but because I don't want to put up with this shit. I'm like, okay. I don't have, she's like, I can do anything. Like my grandma's like, I can do anything I want and I don't have to say anything to anybody else. And then the little old lady's like, it's just gonna get in the way of my peace. And I'm like, damn, like that's like 74-year-old single women who've been single since they were 40 say. Crazy out there.
Well, Paul, we're screwed.
Well, actually,
Oh, I don't believe
what women want, and now there's two women, so they can either agree or not agree. But see, there used to be a stigma. It wasn't that long ago, 20, 30 years ago, there was a stigma. You got divorced. He beat you. He's an alcoholic. He's abusive. But baby, don't leave him because you got a man. And now there's a stigma if he beats you and it's abusive and alcoholic and you stay. So the big shift is that may sound like a little shift. That is a chasm between those two. And that's causing the divorce rate. And the reason to be married is really changing. There are still some incredibly wonderful reasons to be married. And it's also a big industry. And somebody said divorce. Divorce is like a multi-billion-dollar industry. I had the facts at one point. But it's like the reasons to be together are very different now.
Yeah.
And so, and it's like the rule book may not even have worked for our parents. Definitely not for ours, for us. And it's very ambiguous now because we're having to recreate. So it's like there's this thing, transitions, where you're going from one harbor, you're leaving one harbor, and the other one hasn't showed up on the horizon, and you're in this ambiguous time. We're in this ambiguous time because relationships are different, whether it's a man and a woman or a man and a man and a woman and a woman. So your roles used to be gender defined, and now it's like, what is even a gender? We can define our own gender.
Mm-hmm.
And who's masculine, feminine? What's this dance that we're doing? So it's a really wonderful time, ambiguous time, and terrifying time all at once.
And we're living to be much older. And it's not about you marry somebody for 20 years, and then after 20 years, one of you is going to die, or both of you are going to die. But at that time, we hopefully made enough kids to carry on the farm, to take care of the farm. And it's just a whole different thing now. Certainly, many of us, have multiple deep relationships in our life. And I know that I've had several profound marriages, whether we actually got officially married or not, that were profound relationships, but they served their course. They did the course, and then we move on. So I want to get back to mediation, and the best way to do that is going to be to go back to the Ana Isa video for a little bit. So I'm going to hear just a little bit more from Ana Isa, and then of course come back to our wonderful presenters here. Oops. Welcome. what I find is one of the hardest.
Each case is so unique, right? To that. So we do work through the story of what happened in 12, everything that the victim. Okay, so what was your share of contribution? What would you? I also make a distinction between you, when you suffered that abuse, you were not that person anymore. You were a different person now. So we play with time. Yeah. I don't know if that was.
I loved everything you said. I really did. And even though I've been coaching for 25 years, I just learned some good tips from you. So, I mean, I honestly, that's one of my hardest things is working with people who play victim to get their needs met. So I love your process. And I really appreciate your wisdom. You have a beautiful combination of wisdom and compassion, which I guess leads to the next thing I'd love to talk about is how has this work helped you to evolve? And I really have two questions. How have you evolved in doing this work personally? And tell me more about compassion, because I know that compassion is at the center of who you are as a being and the work that you do.
Thank you. I think one big thing that this work has brought to me is the virtue of patience. My sister was in the car with me last week, and I see her once a year, and she was just pointing out, well, when we were teenagers, you were very irritated all the time. You had no patience with me, with anybody. And I was just remembering, oh, that's so true. And she said, no, you were so patient. We were in the traffic jam, like stuck in the car for 20 minutes, and it was just chill. And I'm like, wow, you were so patient. And I thought this work of mediation has brought me a lot of that, because we have to meet each person where they are. We can't rush anything. And you have to let go of any outcome. So if I don't cultivate patience, I can't do that work. And so that's a beautiful process for me. And about compassion is another element that I have developed a lot and comes together with patience. You know, it's like the art of accepting what is. And especially working a lot in cases with abuse, power abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, understanding that nobody has bad intentions. When you go deep enough in why a person did what they did, they were only trying to get a very fundamental need met, you know? When you look into cases of rape or sexual abuse, and you go deep into the psychology behind that, and that's well known by now, like many times, like the person who raped, they were seeking love and attention from their mother, and they're very like repressed, underdeveloped child. So it's a lot to look into. It helps a lot to look into every human being in their purity, in their innocence, what I like a lot in compassion, and many people say, but how can you have compassion for someone who caused so much harm, for someone who murdered someone else, for someone who raped someone else? How can you have compassion? That person doesn't deserve compassion. And my question is, who deserves then? And I like a concept that I learned from Dalai Lama. It's a concept of fierce compassion. And that is, having compassion doesn't mean that you are going to allow that person to just have a free ride and do whatever they want and harm everybody around them just because they need to get their needs met. No, the fierce compassion is having the compassion and understanding that person didn't want to cause that harm. The person didn't have bad intentions. At the same time, finding ways to prevent that harm from happening, being fierce on and finding ways to stop that, to prevent that to happen. So if you are in a position of power and you don't know what to do with that power, and you are abusing people because you're trying to get a need met and you are just choosing strategies that are very harmful, I have a lot of compassion for you. At the same time, how can society look into and support that person in finding their needs in a way that is not harmful? And maybe you have to step down, you have to just get out of that position of power until you learn how to deal with that power, so that's a lot what I see is the fears, like many people pointing out what is wrong with the leaders, what's wrong with the abuser, without having any compassion for them as a human being.
I'm going to ask all of you the same question that I asked her. How has this mediation work, coaching, helped to transform you personally? But I'd also like to actually have Camila address a good question that came in from and I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's pronounced Albania. But she asked, family mediators in court system versus family mediators available outside of court system who are not attorneys. Do people with problems really reach out or know where and how to reach out? And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys talk about that for a moment, and then we'll get to the question.
Sure. I think it points to a gap that exists right now in the non-lawyer mediation field. And I'm speaking as a person who was a practicing lawyer and was doing really alternative transformative mediation work as a lawyer. And then I chose to stop working as a lawyer about a year or two ago. And now I do mediation work and I don't do lawyer work. So I have the experience on both sides. And I think that the mediation field is most well supported currently by court systems and lawyers, and the more community-based mediation and restorative justice circling and things like that have their own niche markets under those names, like community-based mediation or restorative justice circles. So unfortunately, the word mediation still denotes lawyers and court-ordered mediation a lot. And I think over time, eventually, we will have more and more mediators that are non-lawyers and more mediators that are trained in restorative and community-based styles that I would say probably Trish, Paul, and I would all fall into that category. And we're the type of mediators that are more about the healing of relationships for real, not just a negotiation to come to what Paul indicated as a lose-lose compromise. And I really agree with what he said. So court mediation is basically compromise based, and most people walk away feeling like they gave up part of what they wanted and they got part of what they wanted. So partial win-win, partial lose-lose, put them together. It's not a true win-win because there's the partial lose-lose in there. And the type of mediation work we're doing is for me connected to a man named Johan Galtung, his work. And I studied this years ago, so forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, but I think it's Johan Galtung. And his mediation style was called transcendent mediation or transcendence, something like that. And it was like we transcend beyond the current platform of negotiation and compromise. And we're going to another dimension. We're going to another reality. We're going to the reality where people's needs truly can all be met simultaneously and synergistically. And that's the work we do. And that's why we're good coaches and good mediators, because it's really the same thing. When we're coaching people in relationships, we're helping them find where they're both thriving and they're both winning in that relationship. And it does exist. It is possible. And like Johan Galtung said, it's transcending previous ways of humaning and communicating and finding really this new earth reality, which is a place where we're synergistic, a place where we care about each other's needs, where I actually want my partner's needs to get met, where I want my business partner's needs to get met. And, you know, being on a business relationship with Anaisa is a great example. We're just so synergistic and so supportive of each other. And we so genuinely care about each other's needs, even though technically it's an employer and an employee, right? But it's like we are weaving together, supporting each other in every way possible. And I can tell, I feel it. It's different from working at other companies with people that don't have the communication skills we have.
Yes, 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 yes. Period. Yes, yes.
Yep.
I call that, okay, so I call it the triple win. This is what I teach everybody. I'm like, if I have to teach you how to think about other people, thinking about other people, like, and it's one of the cool things that I've thought about a long time in polyamory, like, because I was in polyamory for 8 years, and I was like, is everyone still playing this weird game? Like that, and there's always so much conflict there, and I was like, why can't we all just play the triple win? And this is what so it's like, am I winning? Like, yeah, I'm totally winning. Are you winning? Yes. Is our winning going to help other people win? Yes. And that's really what I run all of my decisions through, and it's really just actually talking about nervous system relaxation. So I'm super excited about, can you say that guy's name again one more time?
Yeah, I'll try to look it up and send you a link. Johan Galtung, and he's Swedish, maybe Norwegian, somewhere in Scandinavia. I think it was Swedish,
Oh.
but I studied him years ago.
It's really awesome because I have this amazing opportunity right now to step into something that's going to stretch my mediation skills a little bit. I've been doing mediation work for a good bit now, but I was offered a potential position at a festival doing incidents, like being the lead for incidents, and I was like, oh, well, that's a little out of my scope, but I'm in it. And what we were talking about is what I just want to bring back in is compassion for everyone. And I often tell my clients, and something that I remember for myself is that so people's thoughts and behaviors are strategies to get their needs met. Some people's strategies are like great and collaborative and connective, and some just suck. I've had some strategies that were really, really crappy, like, and some people I know have really like manipulative strategies to get their needs met, or victimized or perpetrator or whatever savior strategies. They're just not exactly that effective, efficient, or feel-goody, and nobody wins, or maybe one person wins occasionally in those strategies. But in mediation, you're looking for, like what Paul was saying, you're looking for where everyone can connect to. I call it, again, I don't really like the term compromise. I like negotiation. Talk about the kink scene. Like everyone's trying to negotiate here to get all of their needs met as close as possible. And so in the triple win, I'm like, okay, so if Camilla and I, if we're winning, like, but everyone else is kind of losing because we're winning, I'm like, our imaginations aren't working hard enough here. Like, I know that we can use our resources, our brain, our strategies, like read some books to expand it, whatever it might be, whatever we're working for, to really help the world. So if we had children and we were conflicting, I'm just going to make up words now. If we were conflicting here and I want to win because I feel slighted, then what is my strategy here and who does it harm? Like if I'm, so if I'm like in conflict with Paul, is there a way that I can be a little bit more generous with my time, connection, collaboration, and compassion for his humanity? I have got strategies too that are kind of shitty. Can I have some kindness for and compassion for my shitty strategies? And can I show up a little bit more generous with his shitty strategies or your shitty strategies? Like, you know what I mean? I love what with Annalisa. I love that she brought that in. Let's just send her some love because that was okay. And
Thank you. Our wonderful Omoshar found Johan for us. Here is Johan Galtung, and he received the People's Nobel Prize on Saturday, December 2nd, 2017, 5 years ago. The Norwegian founder of peace research. So there you go. Thank you, Omoshar, for finding that for us. Omoshar rocks.
His style is called transcend mediations, and the whole idea is you transcend the conflict. So we're not getting all inside the conflict; we're actually transcending the conflict.
Amazing. Have either of you read this book? I just picked it up recently, and it's an activist, a feminist activist, but really in the sense of like when to be like about it and when to find ways to talk it out. And I'm only like one chapter in, and I'm already like, so.
I also want to acknowledge Sylvia actually had found it also too. I noticed Omoshar's chat first, but Sylvia had found him on Wikipedia. So for those of you who are watching on Facebook and you want to learn more, his name is spelled Johan, Johan, Galtung, Galtung, and Wikipedia. God bless Wikipedia. I donate to Wikipedia. I hope you all do. There it is. There are all sorts of information about him. We have not heard from Paul Sterling for a bit. So Paul, I'm going to ask you the question, how have you personally transformed, evolved, changed as a relationship coach?
Well, this is a little bit embarrassing. I've been through 1 divorce, 4 broken engagements. I went to Sweden. I spent about a month with Marshall in a castle in Sweden. And I was probably in my 40s when I did that. And I had spent most of my life up until then wanting to be my brother. Even though he ended up committing suicide, that's like the weirdest part of the story, but he looked like on the outside, he had his shit together. Women loved him. He was a race car driver. He was a martial artist, handsome. And the way he communicated with himself, he made himself miserable. And what's transformed for me is I started falling in love with me and started communicating differently with me. And it's like I started to look at my needs as, and this is a journey. It's not like I've arrived there, but I can more and more see my needs as precious and less as a burden. And if I slow down when I'm communicating with others, especially if someone's got a different opinion of mine or a triggering opinion, if I slow down and try to really listen to their story, there's a place where I have some people listen from their head. If you listen from your heart, you'll have a visceral response like, of course, no wonder they're feeling upset or angry or belligerent. If I was telling myself that story, I would feel it too. So it's transformed the way I relate, my relationship with myself, the way I communicate. I work from minimum to maximum security with inmates, men and women, and taught them a different way to communicate with themselves. And one of the moments that really resonated with me or struck me, I was working with the maximum security men. I just had 2 days with them. It's the end of the second day. This guy is walking past me and he stops. And like, at least I'm on spider sense when I'm in jail. There's something about it. I'm heightened awareness. When I'm working with a group of inmates, I never had security guards in with me. So if I upset them, I might pay a severe price. So he stops, he starts backing up, and he looks at me. And I say this, I get touched. And he said, Paul, if I had learned this in high school, I wouldn't have spent 20 years in prison. And look at the price, 20 years in prison, the price for him, his family, us taxpayers. We paid 20 years of minimum $30,000 a year to pay for this guy to keep him locked up, and maybe more than that. And what did we get? We got a broken man with a broken heart. And the reason I did the prison program is because I basically believe, and I know it's not true 100% of the time, that most people are doing the best they can with the tools they have. If we don't give them better tools, and one of the most foundational, important tools is our ability to communicate with each other.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I ended up, the last thing I'll say, you know, and you're going to talk about it, but I ended up making so many painful communication mistakes. Some people say, you know, I only make the mistake once. I say, oh, that's BS, man. I made the mistake so many times I wrote a book about it. This is a book of Paul's mistakes. But I wrote it so I could learn about it. When I shared that with Marianne Williamson, you know, somebody else had said, I wrote this book to get the word out. And she said, no, you didn't. You write that book to get the word in. So I wrote that book to get the word in me. So I communicated differently, and I had more compassion for myself and for other people, and whether they're in their victim story or I'm in my victim story, you know, what's the underlying precious need that I'm trying to meet? So
beautiful. We're gonna hear more from Paul. We're not done. We're gonna go till 8 o'clock. We're close to that tonight. But Camila and Trish, I'd love to hear, same question. How have you personally transformed through this work? And then we're going to go to a special guest, Shine Kelly. Camila, you're up.
For me, it is really, truly a life committed to transformational work. And that looks a lot of different ways for me. It's in my tantric work, it's in my shamanism work, it's in my mediation work, it's in my EFT tapping work. There's so many different, it's in my Sufism and spirituality. There's so many different ways that I do transformational work that it is actually hard for me to say, okay, well, my work in mediation was responsible for these ways that I grew. But I will tell you, I have over the years taken so many different courses in communication, so many. I've really put myself in a role of learning about communication so that I can really have some level of mastery in myself and be able to really support people in relationship and in conflict. So there's little moments in my life all the time. I'll give you a short answer. In the last 48 hours, I had a really challenging conversation with a couple people, and there was some tension, and I was feeling the way that I could have slipped into feeling ganged up on, where they had a closer relationship with each other than with me. So I was kind of feeling this 2-on-1 theme. And I could have gotten into all the ways that I wanted to defend and explain this particular comment that came towards me. And I was able to reflect on every part of that inside of me. And I was able to choose love. And it was exactly the piece that Paul was talking about. Does it matter to me more that I understand myself when I talk, or the advanced level communication? Does it matter more if they are receiving my communication, right? For someone to actually take our own responsibility for how our communication lands out there is what Paul was saying the distinction is between a good and a great communicator. And in this challenging conversation I had 2 days ago, it was like really this moment in my brain. It's like I could track the few different steps and the few different moments of emotional wanting to go here or here. And then the mastery moment of actually, it really matters more to me that they feel safe with me, that they feel like we're creating a synergistic relationship. So if there's something about my communication that isn't landing well out there, I'm invested in making it land well out there, which has nothing to do with what I think I said is right or wrong, or, you know, it has nothing to do with my ego. It's all about creating an effective relationship out there with them and taking responsibility for how I occur to them, knowing, because we do this work so deeply, knowing that they're listening through their perceptions, through their traumas and triggers, through their stories about themselves, through their stories about me. These things are operating all the time in our worlds of communication. So I would say a lot of the gems that I experience getting deeper and deeper and more years into this self-growth work and into this communication work is those moments where it's like I see myself having the choice that feels like a mastery moment, where I would rather lean into a loving, synergistic experience than try to protect or explain myself.
Beautiful. I am so grateful that you found a friend with electricity tonight. Really, I'm reminded of how eloquent you also are, and also I just want to acknowledge your soul's growth, because that space, to be in that place of not going into victim, not going into defending, not going into being right, but really considering how is my communication landing? What's going on with this other person? That, heaven on earth is when we all think that way. That's
Yeah.
heaven on earth.
Thank you, Scott.
Trish, what's your transformation story that you'd like to share?
Gosh, there's so much. One of the things that reminds me of right now is learning how to, I'm not even going to say resolve conflict, but even learning how to sit with the discomfort of it, because we're socially taught to avoid it, and that any conflict is bad. And if you have arguments in relationships, it's all bad and like the whole happily ever after thing, which is not rooted in reality, right? That one of the things that I've really appreciated about not only learning how to sit with the discomfort, but also to sit with my own pain around the harm that I've caused, and being able to expand my capacity to be compassionate with another person's pain and suffering, and to acknowledge and really take accountability and show up in that place. Like, it's changing the way that I do everything. It changes it's changed my personality, to be honest. You've seen it over the last maybe year or so, 2 years. Is like, I no longer apologize. I don't use the words, if I can consciously remember to not use the words "I'm sorry," but to actually show up in response and not reaction, because usually my sorries were reactionary, but to respond in a way that puts myself out of my own sort of veil of past pain or some sort of suffering, and into the other person's actual position. Like, that's where it's really helped me. So I'm thinking about things very differently. How I relate to my clients is very differently. How I date is very different. It's really like, I think about things and setting people up for success. How do I set people up for success? Well, if I'm dating this person who is not a very good communicator, and I can, like, even the questions that I ask, like, because I know, right, that conflict is pretty much one of the foundations to intimacy. We talked about that. And it's going to happen. Now, is this person capable or willing, as Scott would say, of meeting me in wanting to do the tools, to work the process, to actually, like, step into their own discomfort of, like, oh my gosh, we're upset and we're triggered. We should probably take enough space until we care about the other person, and then come back to that and actually dive deeper into what it truly is. Most conversations and arguments aren't really about the thing that people are arguing about. It's about something else. It's about needs, wants, and values. It's about something so deeply intimate and personal to someone that they're willing to fight about it. It's just like some of these daily life annoyances just get stacked on each other, right? So what it's changed for me is everything, Scott. It's changed how I choose to be in relationships, or who I invite into my life, or how I'm actually putting myself out there. And I'm going through another section right now where I'm sort of like, I'm protecting my peace right now, and I want to protect everybody else's peace. And that's from Trent Shelton, this sweet Instagram influencer that I really love. But really, what does protecting peace look like? And it's not PIECE or PEIC. I think is that actually it. It's PEACE. Protect your peace. Protect Paul's peace, and Scott's peace, and Camilla's peace, and everybody that they're connected to. So that's how it's changed everything about my life.
Beautiful. And it's true. It's true. Oh, I have watched the changes. I want to share my response to that question, actually. And my change started when I was traveling with Marshall Rosenberg back in 2001, and I was just had been introduced to his way of thinking, nonviolent communication, and we traveled together for 3 weeks. As I was filming him, I did a tour with him for 3 weeks, and we were staying in hotel rooms together and eating restaurants, and I really got to know the man. And he pointed out to me, he said, "You know what you are, Scott? You're a fix-it jackal. You want to fix everybody. You want to make everything better, but that's jackal thinking. It's very judgmental." And it was shocking because I thought of myself as this really cool spiritual guy. And he was lovingly but firmly pointing out my judgmental thinking. And he challenged me, he said, "Just notice how many judgmental thoughts you have every day." And he reminded me of some things that he had heard me say that were judgments. So I made the agreement, and oh my God, it was shocking. At least 100 judgmental thoughts every day, at least. And remember, even going, "Wow, she's really beautiful," is still a judgmental thought, right? Compliments can still be judgmental thoughts. Now, I still have judgmental thoughts all day long, but I notice them. Up, there I go. Up, there I go. And if it's a judgmental thought with a twinge, with a thing, I'll almost never say it now. I'll almost never express it out of my mouth. And if I'm on my best, I notice, okay, what's my unmet need, or what is it that I'm longing for that's on the flip side of that judgment? The other thing I'll say is that as a coach, I just see that what destroys relationship is when our partner or our friend, when we feel judged, blamed, shamed, as Paul would say, bad, stupid, or wrong, when those things happen, that's what destroys relationship, not differences. There's always going to be differences. The more time you spend with someone, the more differences there will be. But it's when we fall into blame, shame, making someone bad, stupid, or wrong, or making ourselves bad, stupid, or wrong. That's what's toxic, and that's what destroys relationship. That's what I've learned within myself and as a coach. All right, I want to talk about some fun stuff that's coming up because we are hitting the road and we're beginning to do live events. Now we're going to continue to do the Awakening World 3 times or more each week, but there's more and more opportunities to come together in person. And I'm heading down to San Diego tomorrow, actually. So for any of you in Southern California, I want to invite you to come down and be with me for a relationship satsang. That's what I'll be doing. Kirtan and celebration. Wow, we need to change that. Celebratation. I just noticed that right now. I didn't make this website, but we're going to be in Encinitas with several of my friends on Sunday from 2 p.m. till 8 p.m. So come on down to Encinitas. I'm going to be doing relationship satsang, teaching, coaching, along with my good friend Viraja Prema. And we've got Kirtan, and it looks like Larissa Stowe might even come down and join us. And she's, of course, one of our favorites on the Awakening World. And then, Paul, I'm going to be heading up to the Conscious Life Expo for 3 days. And I'll talk about the expo on Saturday night because the executive director of the expo is going to actually join me. And we're going to talk about the Conscious Life Expo. And then Paul Sterling is going to hop in the car with me, and we are going to head up north to British Columbia. And you remember last week, you all met Shine and some of his wonderful people. Well, we are all going to be participating in his festival. So, hey, welcome, Shine. First of all, have you enjoyed the show tonight?
Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. It's such an important topic, learning how to self-regulate and connect with other people and understand that, because it is the foundation of harmony or disharmony. And as a species, I think it's the most important thing we can talk about, learn, expand. So thank you for doing this amazing work, everyone.
Absolutely. Well, tell for our friends, because we do have a lot of friends in British Columbia. I know that right now Eleanor Joy is with us, and we've got other friends that watch the show regularly. Tell us about what you're doing at the Unite Fest.
Yeah, and it's worth a trip if you want to come up for it. Do you want me to share my screen, and how long do you want me to?
Yeah, share screen, go for it.
Okay. Are you wanting just like a minute or so, or a few minutes.
One to two, two to
Got it.
three. It looks
So-
like Tatiana might join us. I'm sending her the Zoom
Yeah.
link right now.
Yeah, she's right now. Yeah. So Tatiana is going to be singing there. So it's a full day with we're starting off with a beautiful women's circle, and I'll just kind of take you down the road here. So we have a women's circle with these beautiful sisters, and then yoga. So there's going to be mini sessions to sort of bring people into their hearts, somatic movement therapy. And then Deidre is going to teaching us how to turn our light on, and it's a lot of alignment techniques. And then Scott's going to be sharing about how to get from your reptile brain to your frontal lobe responsiveness, basically, learning from the heart, all that good stuff. And then I'm going to be after Scott talking about my Abraham Hicks inspired meditation and alignment technique. And then we have beautiful organic vegan food being served, and then sound healing. We have 2 side-by-side sound healings happening, each for 90 minutes. And during that, there's going to be this thing called speed healing, where everyone gets a 10-minute session with all these different healers. And so we've got massage and energy healing and PEMF mats and counseling and all sorts of cool stuff. It's really wild to have all these people in a room, all doing the healing work in an open setting, and it creates a beautiful vibe and energy. And then we've got dinner with the same amazing people. And then Paul and Kathy Scott are we're going to do this first. We're doing our sound quest first with Mike Reed. And then Paul and Kathy Scott are going to be leading us through a Anahata cacao and breath ceremony. And it's just a really beautiful guided journey to really, really open up the heart. And then boom, right into an ecstatic dance party with DJ Craig, who is one of our favorite DJs, very intuitive and amazing. And that's it. And there's more details and things. So
Beautiful. And so how do people participate? How do they register for it? What's the link that we should send them?
if you go to unite.love/events, you can find it in there. We're one of the events. Just look for Unite Fest.
Beautiful.
Unite is our new amazing platform where you can now sell tickets and buy and sell products and services and share uplifting content. And eventually we'll host all sorts of cool shows like this and all that stuff. Yeah.
Sean, I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to join us for a few more Awakening Worlds between now and the time of your festival.
And Tatiana is just confirmed she's coming.
And we love Tatiana. So she'll be there. And Paul Sterling's going to drive up with me. I'll introduce you to Paul. You've heard him speak a little bit tonight.
Perfect.
And then a couple of days. So listen, British Columbia is the place to be from like February 16th to the 20th, because on February 19th, Relationship Summit is happening. Now, many of you have seen my friends Dolphin and Steve Rowland and Relation Flicks. Relation Flicks is something that I'm very involved in. I'm one of their teachers, and they're having their first in-person Relationship Summit. Trish is a big part of Relation Flicks. And it's going to be again in Victoria. That's also in British Columbia. And all these people are going to be participating. Now, this is both online and in person. So there's an online component. You can come in and get a ticket and be there all day for the online part of it, or you can actually come in person. So I'll put the link into the chat box while Omashar is playing music, and I'll put the link in for Unite as well. So British Columbia is the place to be, and we're really looking forward to it. Thank you. I want to go to each of our presenters one last time before we go to Omashar and have them share a little bit about their work and how we can find out more about them. So I'm going to go to Paul Sterling, if I can find Paul. Paul, where are you? Did we lose you? Uh-oh. All right, I'm not going to go to Paul Sterling next. I'm going to go to Camila Love next. Hey, Camila, and you get to actually share about a couple of things. Why don't you share a little bit about Safe Mediation first, and then we'll go to your personal website.
Sure. So this is the one we've talked about a couple times in this show, and you got to meet Anaisa, who is my co-mediator, and she's the founder and owner of Safe Mediation. And this is our global mediation organization website. Like I said before, a major part of our workload right now is in the Tantra space. And we also do mediation with families. Like I've done a lot of work with co-parents after they've separated and how they want to work through all the different elements of co-parenting after they're no longer living together. So I do some of that under Safe Mediation. I do some of that under my own practice.
Great. And one of the things that I noticed and I did talk to Anais about this, is that you provide a free 15-minute call.
We do.
So, for example, I know that Bonnie and Roger asked, they want some support on something. So Bonnie and Roger, I encourage you go to safe-mediation.com. Right in the upper right-hand corner, book a 15-minute free call. And you'll probably talk to the lovely Denise. She's a sweetheart. You can select your date and time for your call. And that's a way to kind of meet Camila or Anaisa and see if they're the right mediation service for you.
Indeed.
And then your own personal website is integrate-legacy.com. Integrate-legacy.com. And I'm going to go there now and tell us about this.
So my mediation practice in the US is called Integrate Legacy Dispute Resolution. And the tagline is mediation services for families, because I really focus on relationships that are lifelong relationships, not short transactional business relationships. So my mediation work is the good stuff and the hard stuff, the relationships that really matter, and they tend to be the deepest seated conflicts that have lasted the most number of decades. So I work with adult siblings who've inherited a family home and they're trying to be co-owners of this property together. I work with, like I said, co-parents after they've split and they're still working through many different aspects of how to parent in as much harmony as possible. And I do relationship mediation for people that are still together too, when they're in conflict and wanting support, which my coaching is actually under a different business name, which is transformintolove.com. So at some point, I may just dissolve my Integrate Legacy mediation and do all my mediation work under Transform Into Love, because I'm realizing that it's all me and all the services I offer are all the different skills I have, and it makes more sense to be under one company than multiple companies.
Absolutely. Well, I'll pull that website up too, or maybe you can pop it in the chat box. And I noticed that you also are offering a free call. So again, if people go to integrate-legacy.com, right there, click to schedule a free Zoom consultation. And I love what you said, impeccable and approachable conflict resolution and facilitation services for all families, no matter background. I love that you've chosen to see same gender relationships, people of color, just all shapes, sizes, colors, ages. That's really beautiful, the carousel that you've created here.
Thank you. That's really important to me. Yeah, I work on a team with Safe Mediation. There's a couple women that I work with are women of color, and that's really my choice, is to support folks that come from diverse backgrounds as much as possible, and to offer my services to communities that are particularly more marginalized. So I do lower rates for different folks that need that, and I'm really able to offer sliding scale rates to help different communities have access to services. That's something that's really important to me.
Mila, I so respect you. Thank you so much. And thank you for your dedication to learning. You know, I know that you're very dedicated to learning and growing, and you've got a beautiful humility about that.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. It's an honor to be here today.
Yep. Thank you. Hopefully we'll have you on sooner than later.
Great.
Trish, right. Trish Wright Loves. And that's also her website, trishwrightloves.com. And Trish, what are you offering these days?
Well, right now, the cool things that I'm growing and evolving into, who knew? Like, currently, I'm taking 15 people through a course called Self-Secure, which I'll be running again. I'll be working through starting in April, I believe, a jealousy. We're going to do a book club called the Jealousy Workbook. It's not exactly my favorite jealousy book, but but it has a lot of really amazing tools in there if you're struggling with insecurities, things like that. And then I've got a really sweet, but I can't tell you yet, men's program. I know.
Oh,
In.
oh.
But you know what? The thing that I'm working with right now is that because I'm a certified sex and relationship coach, people call me up to help them with their sex life. And I'm always talking to them about their communication, attunement skills, and conflict resolution. That's really where it is. So I just translate, and then I kind of teach them some maybe cool things that they're actually seeking. So that's kind of my work right now. I'm walking a couple people through exploring and expanding their self into polyamory, and I'm also walking through a grip of people who really want help with dissolving their codependent tendencies and becoming more interdependent. So that is the nature of my practice, and that's what I'm doing.
Beautiful. I want to just say Trish does great work. And it's so good to have you back with us, Trish, on a weekly basis. I'm really happy about that. I love you so much.
Making it for me. You made it for me. I know you did, because you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but you know what? It's good being on. I like having a midweek show, and it gives me a Friday night off. Like, wow, I have a Friday night off. Maybe I can actually start dating now or something. So, thank you.
So it's a triple win now, isn't it? Huh?
It's so good. It's so good.
Yes.
And the only thing better than that is that Paul Sterling is back with us. So there's Paul. And hey, Paul, welcome back. So this is the part of the show where you tell people what you're doing, and I go to your website, and you're offering a free ebook. Tell us about that.
No, I'm offering a free book.
A free book?
They pay the shipping for it. So basically, if they go to Amazon, it's a $20 book plus shipping. If they go to the website, they get it for $6.95. And the essence of the book, if you think about it, Scott, you wrote a great bio in there, not bio, but
Forward.
Thank you. Anyway, it's like throughout this whole thing today, the heartbeat of it is communication. Even what Trish just said, there's many different doorways, whether we're talking about sex or this or that. In the middle of it is still communication. And for communication to work, you have to have somebody who's speaking and somebody who's listening. And there are 5 triggers that shut people down almost across the board, almost no matter what training they have. And it's important to be able to identify those triggers, to avoid those triggers without having to avoid the conversations. So identify, avoid, recognize when you're in the middle of doing them, because even though I'm really trained, all of us are trained, we still screw up at times. And it's good to recognize when we're in it and then repair. And the last thing is how to create a safe space after you repaired, so that people can move up to that higher levels, get out of the reaction, move up to responsive, resourceful, and revealing. And so I wrote a book about that journey, and it was in response sort of to Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication book. His is the book of what to do. Mine was here are the 5 triggers to avoid. So these two work together really well.
Beautiful. And the way to get there is by going to, I put the chat, it's a fairly lengthy.
There's an easy way in, Scott.
Oh, what's the easy way?
Argue less, love more.net /free book. And it will forward you to the same place you just took it. But that's the easy thing to remember. Argue less, love more.net /free book. And you can also, if you'd rather listen to it, there's a place where you can get the audio. If you're international, I'm not shipping the hardcover book out anywhere but around the US. So if you're international, you can get a digital copy of it and get the audio. And there is a place where people can sign up for the intimacy workshop and other workshops in there and find out more about what I have to offer. And the one like closing thought is that all of the speakers tonight, I'm speaking for you, hopefully you don't, but the compassionate side of us is always a choice. Like I go to the gym every damn morning. It's not like I can go to the gym and have my final workout and then I'm fit for life. This is a lifetime process and we're in it. And I look at Trish is the most learning machine I know. And Scott's always learning. And I don't know Kamala as well, but it's like Camila as well. But I can tell she's a lifelong learner. And it's an ongoing choice. And we always have a choice. Like, do we choose to go to the old way or to the new way? And so surround yourself with people like this. Take Trish's course, my course, Scott's course, Camilla's courses. It's an ongoing thing. Go to the gym, build your relationship muscles. Thank you, Scott. And get my book. It's only like 100 and some pages. I reread it on a regular basis because it's damn good.
It is. It's a great book. It's a great book. We're gonna go to Omar Shar for closing song. I know Camila needs to get in the car and drive back to her electricity-less home. But thank you again, and thank you to whoever's home you are in. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Trish. It's been a really powerful show. And hey, everybody, remember, shows like this where there's so much information, share it with your friends. Share our shows with your friends. And of course, you, for all of you who are in the Zoom room, you get the replays on Mondays. We always send out the replays, so you can get the recordings that way, or you can find them always on our YouTube channel or on my Facebook page or on the Love Coach Academy Facebook page. All right, to integrate all of this wisdom, we are going to go to, what did you have there, Obashar? What are you hiding? What are you hiding?
So,
what are you hiding there?
What an honor and blessing to be a part of this discussion tonight. I feel so at home with what has been shared, and I'm so honored to meet the eloquence of all the teachings of Camilla and Trish and Paul and you. It's phenomenal. This is back to front. So look at that.
You got it. That's the great book.
It took me, I had to bribe him $6.95. And so thank you, Paul, for that book. How phenomenal. I have not yet read it, so I cannot do a write-up on it, but I will, I promise. And so we're going to sing a song now called I Am You. And I'm going to have a different background just because it takes your focus off of me. And
whoa. And get ready to dance. Eleanor Joy is already dancing. So
I know.
She's not start playing music yet, and she's dancing.
Here we go. Look into my eyes, my eyes, my eyes. And isn't that how it used to be? I love you so much, all of you. I think we're ready. Okay. Right. I am you, though we seem to come from different skies. And what is true is the love that shines right through your eyes. Yes, we are here and now, and it's time to leave the past behind. So take me by the hand, let us walk across this sacred land. Because I am you, though we seem to come from different
different skies. And what is true is the love that shines right through your eyes. Remember, you're always divinely connected. Our bodies, our spirits are being resurrected. The love in your hearts will lift you up, and I'll come along and fill your cup. I am you, though we seem to come from different skies. I'll sail away with you across the universe, and we'll fly on eagle's wings. 'Cause you know we'll cry with gratitude. And again, remember, you're always divinely connected. Our spirits, our bodies have been resurrected. The love in your hearts will lift you up, and I'll come along and fill your cup. Shines right through your eyes. 1,000 sunny days describes the joy I feel. I'll walk 1,000,000 miles, because you know we'll see the truth revealed. And we will. Remember, we're always divinely connected. Our spirits, our bodies are being resurrected. The love in your hearts will lift you up, and I'll come along and fill your cup.
So, Twinkle, beloved brother Omashar, another wonderful show, another wonderful pair of musical numbers from our beloved brother. Thank you so much.
It's so fun. It's so fun, I tell you.
Well, we've got a couple of great shows coming up this Saturday night.
Oh, and tomorrow morning, self-love show.
Yeah, Trish. Self-love show. What's who do you got tomorrow?
It's like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm teaching tomorrow.
Wow. Well, that's great. What are you teaching on?
I was like, oh yeah, right. It's a surprise because I was like, our person that we had on backed out. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna and one of the tools that I'm teaching on is about reassurances and reassuring people and being generous with your attention. It's my assistant Roy is helping me through this class, and I'm like, what is your favorite tool of the 4 weeks through this class? And he goes, I really like that reassurances one. And I was like, okay.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. And I'm big on reassurance, definitely. Let's get in the rhythm of every Wednesday night promoting what you're doing on Thursday morning. Send me the poster or have the poster ready to pull up. Let's get into that rhythm, okay?
If she forgets, I'll remind her.
Yeah, Omashar, you are so good about that. Thank you so much, Omashar. Yeah, he's beautiful.
My ADHD does not let me pin those things. It'll be random when I give it. This is why I need other people to just you're the perfect hummingbird to whisper in my ear.
I love it. All right. And a couple of just the final shows for this weekend. On Saturday night, we're going to be doing part 2 of this amazing show that we started on Sunday with Chief Phil Lane and the Green Beret, Andrew Marr, that we met. Remarkable gentleman. What a story. And also joining us, grandmother Mona Polaka and our beloved Kristen Hoffman, all about unifying our human family and ending war. So that's going to be on Saturday night, February 4th. And then finally, Deborah Giusti is coming back. She's written a book called Ascension Tips, a simple blueprint for your journey. And her co-author, Meg Benedicte, and she will be with us live. And she did a presentation at our retreat in October, and she's got it down. She's got the Ascension Tips really, really down to a science. You know, she has been studying ascension for decades. I mean, it's like her field of study. She really is like, she leads all the ascension conferences, panels. So if you're interested in what does ascension really mean, how do I do it? How do I deal with it? What are the issues that come up? Make sure you join us this Sunday, 10 o'clock Pacific time for Ascension Tips. All right, everybody. We're going to go to gallery view one last time. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Share our show. Share it out with everybody. And I look forward to seeing you this weekend. God's blessings, everybody.